Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. As always, my name is Jay, and in this video I want to talk about the new Lancer kit, the new Imperial Knight Lancer kit that is out for GW, and the rules. You know, because I've been a person that's been playing the Lancer for several editions now, and it's been really cool. Like those who've seen my videos in the past, I have several of the Cerastus Knights, and I've used them in battle reports over the last 4 editions. I have the Lancer, the Acheron, and the Castigator. And GW officially released this weekend. It's on pre-order. It'll be available next week. A plastic kit for the Lancer. And so I wanted to talk about my thoughts on the kit, the fact that GW is doing this, and the rules for the Lancer. Is it actually worth purchasing in the first place? So let's go through that in today's video. So of course, as I just mentioned, today, so this weekend, the plastic kit for the Lancer was put on pre-order. I think it's awesome. I really love the fact that GW is releasing these amazing kits in plastic, which makes them so much easier to purchase and to build and to keep built. They can be put with plastic glue, which is so much nicer than the resin that I have, and with using super glue. So much easier to build. You can customize them. It comes in different poses, which is awesome. I think the kit is tremendous. I think it looks great. In Canada, it's $240, which is significantly cheaper than the price of resin kits from Forge World. So it's cheaper, it's better all around. I am super happy with that, for them bringing this model to the Games Workshop website. And I really do actually hope that this happens with the Castellan kit and the Acheron kit, and the other one's the Atropos. I believe I don't have that one, but yeah, I didn't really keep up with that one. And it's gonna be cool. Like I really think it's awesome. It's $240. Some people have already asked me, am I gonna be buying the kit? No, I'm not gonna be purchasing it. The reason is I already have one, right? I don't need 2 Lancers, not at the moment, and I'm gonna discuss why in just a moment. I don't really need 2 Lancers. I already have a Lancer, so I'll deal with my resin ones from Forge World, versus buying plastic ones. But I really do think it's awesome. It'll bring them to a lot more Imperial Knight players. So yeah, I love it. I think it's really cool. What do you think? Leave comments in the comment section down below what you think about this. Do you really like the kit? I think it looks awesome. I think it's really cool that it's now in plastic. But now let's get to the rules and why you should or should not even purchase this kit. Now I do notice it has been sold out on the website. You'll probably be able to pick it up at your local store. Is it worth purchasing? Up to you. I personally think it's cool, but I don't think it's a very good knight at the moment in this edition, to be honest. I don't think it has a really good role, and I think it's overpriced. It's over points costed right now. It really is. So let's go over the rules, and we'll talk about why. But the first thing is, of course, it comes in at a whopping, and I mean whopping, 495 points, right? These Cerastus Knights, these Cerastus Knights are very expensive. The Castigator is 485, the Lancer is 495, and the Acheron is 445. I loved the Acheron in previous editions with the gigantic pie plate of doom. He just laid it down and killed all the Space Marines and bikers like no one's business. They're so expensive points-wise. And I play Knights, and when this new edition came out, and as you know, I'm super excited about Knights in general, I tried to see if I could fit in some of the Cerastus Knights in my lists, and I couldn't find a place for them. They're too expensive. They're just too expensive. And when you only have 2,000 points to work with, 495 points is a lot of points for one model that isn't... It's not amazing. It isn't. It's 5 points less than a fully kitted out Crusader. Right? If you think about all the guns on a Crusader, all the guns that the Crusader brings to the table, it's just to take that away and replace it with the Lancer at basically the same cost just doesn't make any sense. You know what I'm saying? It just doesn't make any sense. The Lancer has one gun, and is the lance, and it can shoot, and it can be used in assault. It's very good in assault. I will give it that. And the Lancer is arguably the most survivable. It's not even arguable. It is the most survivable knight in the Codex, right? That you have access to. It's the most survivable. But knights don't typically have an issue with survivability. You know, if you're playing a knight army, typically your strategy is kill the big guns of your opponent and just try to get the secondary objectives and hold on to the lead for the rest of the game. Usually it's a problem with your opponent has is killing the knights. You know, if they don't go first and you wipe out some of their heavy hitters, they have a problem with wiping out your knights. So survivability isn't the big issue as a knight player. Like, you know, I've played knights a couple times this new edition. My problem wasn't survivability. It was, well, technically it was just covering the bases, really, because I have such a low model count, right? And once again, it's a quarter of your army just in this one model. And it doesn't, the problem is that I'm having with the Lancer is it doesn't fit well with the rest of your army. I'm going to go over that in a moment. So let's go over the Lancer, as I said. Enough talking about why. But the Lancer's 495 points. Now, it is very, very survivable for a number of reasons. Number one, it is a Cerastus Knight, so it is more wounds, so 25 wounds. And it's also a 4-up invulnerable save. It has a shield, so it's a 4-up invulnerable save versus the 5-up invulnerables for the other knights that are only in shooting, right? So, like a Crusader has a 5-up invulnerable save against ranged attacks. A Lancer has a 4-up invulnerable save against everything. You combine that with Rotate Ion Shields, and it's a 3-up invulnerable save with a 6-up Feel No Pain, 5-up Feel No Pain when you have fulfilled your whatever your role is for that game. Very survivable. Very survivable. So 25 wounds, a 4-up invulnerable save. You hit up, like, he's basically going to be your focal point for Rotate Ion Shields every turn that your opponent focuses on. He'll use your command point, and he'll be awesome and survive. And that will really deter your opponent, because if you can get a 3-up invulnerable save, your opponent's probably going to ignore him, because you can't, to waste, you know, in this edition, it's so hard to wound. The wounding is the problem, and so when you're wasting your big shots on something that has a 3-up invulnerable save and a 6-up Feel No Pain or a 5-up Feel No Pain, it's just huge. So, yes, he's going to likely survive, unless your opponent has a really easy answer for him, which might be in close combat to tar pit him or something, you know, whatever. The other thing about him is he hits very hard in close combat. That I'm going to give him. He hits very hard. He is arguably the best close combat knight as well. But once again, all the knights are decent in close combat, but they have a lot of firepower. So once again, what I liked for this video is to, you know, think of the Lancer as a substitute for the Crusader. So his shock lands in close combat. It is assault, so you can, you know, advance and shoot. As sustained hits 2, which is kind of cool, but only 6 shots. 6 shots, 3-up to hit. Strength 6, AP nothing to damage. Sustained hits 2. But it's only 12-inch range gun. So he's going to advance, right? He's a 14-inch movement, and he's toughness 12. So 14-inch movement plus advance, so maybe on average 17 inches, 29-inch threat range on average. He is capable of both, you know, advancing and assaulting. If he can bond, his Lancer's Duty bondsman ability is he's able to declare a charge in which he advanced, turn in which he advanced, which is cool. And he has shock charge, which is pretty cool. Once again, shock charges, you can use tank shock on him, the tank shock stratagem, on him for no command points, and you can even use it if you've already used it in that turn for another model. And those of you who don't know what tank shock does, basically you roll a number of dice equal to the strength characteristic of the weapon, which is 20 in this case, and if it's higher than toughness, an additional 2. So you're going to roll 22 dice, and every 5 up to a maximum of 6 dice generates a mortal wound against the squad you charged. So on average, should easily hit his, unless you roll terribly, he should easily hit his 6 mortal wounds. So when he charges in, and again, huge threat range, he can, you know, advance on average 17 inches up to 20 inches, and then assault, he can easily get in turn 1, providing your opponent doesn't, you know, turtle up in a corner. Cool. And he's going to get some mortal wounds, and then he hits really hard in close combat. His shock lance has strike and sweep. Strike is 5 attacks, 2 up to hit, but it has also lance, so 2 up to hit, strength 20, and AP minus 3, D8. Huge. D8, right? So he's going to be wounding anything on 2s because of lance. If he didn't assault, 3s. for the big crazy targets. Cool. Then he also has sweep, which is 10 attacks, 2 up to hit, strength 10, AP -2, 3 damage. He'll definitely kill stuff. He's going to kill stuff in close combat, that's not deniable. Here's my problems. Okay, number 1. So once again, he's the same price as a Crusader. If he was 100 points cheaper, I think he should be equal pointed as a Wraith Knight, because he fulfills the exact same stuff with less firepower. He's pretty good in close combat. He's basically a Wraith Knight. He should be appropriately costed. But his strength is assault. The problem is most of your army, the strength is shooting. Most knights, you want to stay back, keep your guys close together, stay on objectives, and stay in close proximity, bond, and shoot stuff. The problem is with this guy is he's going Leroy Jenkins, right? This is his strategy. He's Lance Roy Jenkins, basically. He wants to assault, and you want to get him to assault basically turn 1, because you want to start killing stuff. His shooting isn't going to do much. Maybe if a Space Marine fails, he'll kill a tactical Marine, right? Cool. On average, he'll kill a tactical Marine in a turn. But his assault is where he really specializes. That's the problem. So number 1, you want to catapult him at your opponent, slingshot him at your opponent, send him Leroy Jenkins right at your opponent. So pretty much after turn 1, he's not going to be anywhere near a bonded unit, typically. He's going to lose that ability. Especially if your opponent just kills the little knight that he bonded with. And he's out on his own. So now he's in your opponent's deployment zone if you went first. If your opponent went first, you're probably in no man's land somewhere, because that'll be where the line was drawn, where the 2 armies hit. So he's on his own, right? So he's on his own. It's gonna be harder to get a counter assault in. Your opponent can theoretically tar pit him with a lot of units, and most opponents who know how to stack their army, if they know a Lancer's on the table, the juicy targets will not be anywhere near the Lancer, right? If I was playing a guy who had a Lancer, I would intentionally separate my big targets and put them in opposite corners or behind a giant wall of things. So he's not getting to the juicy targets, and that's really where he shines, right? It's an 8 damage weapon in close combat. You want to send him at knights, or you want to send him at land raiders. You want to send him at shadow swords, and those kind of things. You don't want to send him at a squad of orc boys or gene stealer cult, acolytes, hybrids. But that's who's going to engage him, because that's going to be the front of the army. Gene stealers are going to be, for gene stealer cult army, a bunch of troops, which he will stomp into the ground, which is great. He has his lance and he'll kill a bunch of turn. And he'll do mortal wounds, but that's kind of it. And then the opponent's choice is to shoot him into bits or just ignore him, right? And theoretically, your opponent could ignore him and just focus on the rest of your army and knock out the big players in the back and whatever. It depends on the specific army. But once again, he has to get to the juicy targets. He's 500 points. He's a quarter of your army. To make up his points, he has to kill a quarter of your opponent's army, which is really hard when you're fighting infantry. He has to get to the land raiders, and he has to get to the big guys, which is going to be a challenge. So it's hard for this model to fulfill its role, I find. He's fast, so if you go first, you can slingshot him at your opponent, force him to deal with it. And if your opponent can't deal with it, he'll run around the field killing things a little bit at a time. And I'd always recommend consolidating into combat, because just keep going into combat with its 4-up invul and its rotate ion shields and feel no pain. Keep just killing stuff as much as possible and starting every turn in close combat. But as I said, it's hard. When I've had a lot of success with the Lancer in the past, which was different editions, I ran the Lancer with 2 other Cerastus Knights. So they were all fast. They could all go up at about the same speed. They could all hit really hard. And your opponent had to decide at the same time which one to focus on. The other 2 would just hit you really hard. In this one, you've kind of just slungshot him. As I said, the Leroy Jenkins. For the younger people, you won't get my reference, but the older people, you know what I mean. You've shot him at your opponent. Now your opponent has to basically deal with him or ignore him. He can kind of tar pit him, and it's kind of a point-and-click strategy. I just don't see it working out. And as I said, he takes up the same amount of points as a Crusader, which is the best knight in the entire codex, right? The Crusader is the foundation of most competitive lists for the Imperial Knights because it can carry so many weapons, and it's quite decent in close combat too, but can also just shoot an opponent off the table with all its guns, right? And you're thinking of replacing this guy with a specialist of assault. I just don't know what to think. I think he's way too overcosted myself. I'd say easily 75 points overcosted. You drop it down to the same price as, you know, the cheapest knight, 325 points maybe, and then you have an argument because he's really good in close combat. Really, his gun, it's kind of vestigial, right? It doesn't do that much more damage than a heavy stubber. It has an AP0, right? So, I don't know. That's why I don't know. So again, amazing model. I'm super happy that it's coming to plastic. I really hope it happens with all the other Cerastus Knights. I just don't like the rules for this particular model for the points cost. And that's why I haven't tried them yet in this edition, is because no list I can build has room for this guy. And I'm going to try it out. I'm going to have the model already. It's already painted. I can easily field it anytime I play. Next time I maybe field Knights, I'll bring one out and have some fun. I just don't see it fitting the list very well. But what do you think? That's just my opinion. What do you think? Leave comments in the comment section down below what you think about this model, the fact that they're bringing these Knights to plastic. Obviously, there's also the you can play them in Horse Heresy, which is what they're for as well, which there's different rules, and that's cool. Do you think it's worth it? What do you think? Leave comments in the comment section below. Let's create a discussion. As always, just a huge thank you for watching this video. Please subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so, like the video, and enjoy. Stay tuned for more videos. Till next time, this is Jason. Happy painting.